And welcome into the New England Hockey Journal's RinkWise Podcast. I'm your host, Evan Marinofsky. No Patrick Donnelly today, unfortunately. Pat is off taking a well-deserved vacation in New Hampshire. But joining me today, a great guest. It ends the streak of hockey parents. It was Freddie Meyer, Jay Pandolfo. Now we get Tyler Holske. Tyler Holske, the South Shore Kings GM and head coach, 2024 Dineen Cup champ as well, Sioux City Musketeers USHL assistant GM and director of scouting, and NHL Central Scouting Eastern Regional Scout. Tyler, first of all, welcome to the show.
Thanks.
Very happy to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And secondly, do you ever get a time to rest? Do you ever get any time off?
Yeah, it's a great question. Obviously, you know how this season went for my team with the Kings, going to the very end of April. You know, it was a bit long, but yeah, a little bit in May, and it's ramped up the last few weeks just with camps and traveling for recruiting. So
yeah,
unfortunately, not a ton of time, but that's part of what we signed up for.
You're grinding, which is perfect. You're one of the hardest workers out there, and it's evident in all the jobs and all the success you've had. The Dineen Cup champ obviously was incredible. You guys with the big win, and I want to get into that, but I want to start with just kind of the draft, the 2024 draft.
Sure.
Were you surprised at how New England did? I mean, New England 5 total kids, 1 out of prep. Were you shocked? Any kind of takeaways you had from the draft?
No, you know, I think you could, make an argument for every player, right? And every NHL staff, you know, has their opinion on players. But no, I'm not surprised. Obviously, the one prep player that went, Ben Merrill, obviously was one of the bigger names in prep to watch this year. And personally, I had a lot of viewings on him and a lot of good viewings.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of upside in that player. Obviously drafted by the Montreal Canadiens, and I believe he's headed to Penticton and then to Harvard. But yeah, really good prospect, and I think the sky's the limit for him.
It's funny you mentioned upside. It feels like with the way a lot of teams were picking in the draft, and this has kind of become a thing over the last bunch of years, and obviously scouts are always picking for upside, but they like size. Sure. And that was one thing I noticed with even non-New England kids. 6'5" guys, 6'6". Bruins picked Dean Letourneau, 6'7". Like, they want guys who are big. They're projecting out, hoping a big guy hits. Merrill fit that mold. 6'4", skilled, can shoot the puck. You think that's kind of here to stay, of guys with size getting the nod in NHL drafts?
I do, and especially you look at the teams that have won the Stanley Cup the last few years. You talk about size, especially on the back end. You're building decors of guys that are 6'3", 6'4", 6'5". But yeah, I think size is a huge component, and especially when you're talking about 18-year-old young men, you're trying to project what they're going to be like when they turn pro. It's not about what they are now; it's more about down the road what they could be. Yeah,
and that's a tough thing. That's hard. I mean, there's no sure bets, and I think that's one of the toughest parts with doing that and projecting it. And I think one thing people around here are wondering is, you obviously have one, Merrill was the lone kid taken out of prep. Some people thought, Caden Harrington, Gio DeJulian. There were definitely, Marco Billick. There were some others. And goalies are a whole different thing, which we'll get to because you're a former goalie from Southern New Hampshire University. Yeah. And I want to get into that. But do you think we will see more prep kids taken in future drafts, or is this kind of a trend that's here to stay?
Yeah, honestly, it's a great question. I think it all depends on, obviously you're starting to see more players leave early to go to junior hockey, right? That certainly has heated up the last couple of years. So I don't know. I think it really depends on if kids stick around and graduate from their school, or if they leave early to go, to the different junior leagues that are out there.
Yeah, and and you mentioned, I think prep has just become a younger league too. Sure. Like, you have these high-end players. Will Smith was there, and Casey Mutrin, Teddy Mutrin, these players are there, but then leave early, whether it be for the program or the USHL. And this is where I want to talk. This is where I'm very interested in your takes on this, with you being as big as you are in junior hockey. We'll start here. I mean, when is the right time? And you see this with Sioux City. And I know it's different for every player, but when is the right time to go to junior? Is there is there a sign? Is it stats? What is it in your eyes?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. It's important you leave when it is the right time, right? Because, I'm seeing it a lot now, too, where players are leaving too early, right? And, they're 15, 16 years old, leaving prep school or wherever they've played, midget AAA and headed to junior hockey, and it's an eye-opener when they get there, and when adversity kicks in, when they get there, it's how do they deal with it? How does the coaching staff deal with it when the player is struggling? And there's times where you see a player struggle right out of the gate, and all of a sudden he's not in the lineup. And for a 15, 16-year-old kid, like, what does that do, for them? And sometimes you can go, you think taking, a step to junior hockey early could be, you're taking a step ahead, but sometimes you can go the other way, right? So I think it's important that you're not in a rush and you focus on not dominating the level that you're at, but getting a lot of puck touches and making sure you're prepared and ready before you make that step.
And there's no real way to know when you jump to a junior team, no matter what junior team it is, whether it's USHL, NCDC, BCHL.
Sure.
Guaranteed playing time isn't really a thing. I mean, you don't know when you're going there because guys emerge. You don't know. I mean, there are guys come from all over the country. You see it with Sioux City, like you see it with your South Shore Kings team. There are guys coming from everywhere. You don't know how the puzzle's going to fit together. And you hit on an interesting thing of like 15 and 16-year-old kids going out to the USHL early and not playing. And like my view of it, and I didn't play in the USHL, I didn't play junior hockey, but I look at it and say like, okay, it's great you're practicing against these older kids, but game reps are different. And
totally,
I think you see some of these kids go out there, and some do really well. I'm not saying they don't, but some you do see it where they're not playing a lot. And I mean, those ages are so important for development, right?
Yeah, and I think, for me as a coach too, obviously as a scout as well in Sioux City, I think it's important that if you're going to commit to bring in a younger player, maybe a year early, that you commit to playing that player through the highs and the lows, because there's going to be some lows, especially early on. It's a big adjustment period. It's a big adjustment coming, after you graduate out of prep, headed to the USHL or the BCHL, the NAL or the NCDC. You're playing against bigger, faster, stronger kids. So there's always going to be an adjustment period, especially early on. And I just think for coaches, it's important that you stick with those younger players, especially if you're going to take them in maybe a bit early. And
you have a unique perspective on this because you actually do it with the South Shore Kings. How do you go about making sure younger kids get in the lineup? I mean, most of your lineup this year was 03, 04. You had some 05s, and you had, I think, like 2 or 3 06s. Sure. And you might have some 07s next year. What goes into getting those kind of players in the lineup, making them feel included in practice and their development?
Yeah, I think it's every coach is different, right, with how you want to build your team. And, for me in South Shore, it's we have an age limit in our league. So we can, this past year, we were able to have 8 2003 birth years. Goalies didn't count. So we had eight skaters were allowed at the 2003 birth year. Obviously, our group, we had 8 2003s, but we also had a good mix of younger guys, 05s, 06s that could have been still playing midget AAA or in prep school. So I think it's good to have a blend, where the younger guys can learn from the older guys, and having younger guys draws more attention in terms of college coaches coming to watch, and it only helps the older players.
Yeah, because a lot of those kids, the 04s and 05s that you have, and some of the 03s as well, either may not have been committed or, and they need to get those looks too then, right?
For sure.
So I think it's an interesting thing, and on the USHL side of things, it seems like it's become a league that the NHL takes much more seriously in terms of drafting players straight out of. You think that's part of the reason too, that kids leave prep early in the sense like, hey, I'd rather play my draft year in the USHL than prep, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, again, you're certainly seeing the trend of kids leaving early, and I think a big part of it is the amount of practice time in the gym, time in the video room that these kids are getting at these programs and in the USHL in other junior leagues as well. There's a lot more than, you know, being at a prep school where you're in class all day till 2:30, 3 o'clock, and then on the ice for practice, and then in the dining hall, and then, you know, studying from there, and then you're in bed and doing it all over again. Where in junior hockey, there's a lot more hockey, there's a lot more touches, there's a lot more involvement from the coaches on a daily basis.
And you coached with Paul Canada for a bunch of years at Milton, so you know this.
Yep.
Well, how was it coaching with Paul?
Where do I start?
Exactly.
Unbelievable experience. Paul's a terrific human being. You know, one of the best hockey coaches, best hockey minds I've been fortunate to be around. Learned so much from him, and just a well-spoken, great person. So I can't say enough for what he did for me. Obviously, when I got done playing in Europe in 2016, I got right into coaching with the Kings as an assistant coach, and jumped on at Milton as well, and was there with him for I think 5 years. But yeah, can't say enough good things about him.
He's so zen-like. I feel like he always is in control. Like it could be in a burning building. I'd see Paul Canada and be like, oh, I'll be okay. You know, he'll get us out of here. How did you know you wanted to go into coaching?
Yeah, just playing. Obviously, growing up, I played for the Kings youth program, and obviously junior hockey as well. Played a year with the Junior Bruins as well. And then went to college and 2 years of semi-professional hockey in Europe after. And then just wanted to stick with hockey, right? I knew after college, you know, wanted to give going overseas a try for a couple of years. And after that, knew coaching was kind of right for me. So right away, when I got done, I got right into coaching. Going
over to Europe and playing, I have a couple friends now who either are still playing D3 or played it a couple years ago and are done and are actually looking at going over and playing in Europe. And they kind of said it to me as like it's sort of like a study abroad type thing, you know, a chance to go live in Europe, play in Europe. And what's that experience like, and what can players benefit from that?
I would recommend it to anybody, you know, and obviously not for everybody. You're not going over to make a ton of money, right? It's more so for the experience, to understand different cultures, to meet people, but at the same time to play hockey and travel around. So, again, I would recommend the experience to anybody that can do it, and even if it's just for a year, you know. And once you're over there, it's so easy to travel around. You know, the countries are so close. So, I would say for a player even coming out of Division III that if you have an opportunity to get over there, it's well worth it. And
there are so many leagues over there, and there's so many opportunities to play, right? For whether it be a Division I player or Division III, right?
Yeah, there's every country pretty much has, you know, one or two leagues. Obviously, Sweden, Finland, you know, those countries, Germany, you know, they have a bit more, but you know, there's a lot of opportunity for sure.
Yeah, it looks like a cool experience. I mean, some of my buddies are thinking about doing it, and we're looking into it, and I was like, yeah, that looks like a lot of fun. I kind of want to, like, I'm like, oh, my men's league skills are coming back. I can maybe find a league out there. I don't think that's the case, but with prep hockey, in terms of the draft, and because we were just kind of talking about this, you know, obviously only one player selected. It seems like there's a much higher threshold for players coming out of prep. You know, it's not just, hey, putting up a ton of points. There's got to be a measurable thing to the NHL draft. Whereas in the USHL, you know, you can just have a really good season points-wise. You know, Joe Connor's a good example, right? Sure. Like Joe Connor had a really good season in prep. They said, oh, he's too small, he's undersized, wasn't picked. Next year, has a great year at the USHL, 60 points in 51 games. He's picked in the 7th round. Is that kind of the mold you see for players who are 18 in prep, who have really good years? It's like, all right, it's great you do well in prep, but, you know, we need to see what you got at a higher level. Is that kind of where you're seeing things going?
I do. Again, not for everybody.
Of course.
But I do think having a really strong year in prep, you know, and then following that up with a good year in junior hockey certainly helps, especially if you're in your draft year, because the reality is, and you see it at the college level now, like scouts want to see you play against bigger, faster, stronger kids, right? So I think if, you know, you can step into junior hockey and have an impact, you know, in that first year right out of the gate, it certainly helps, you know, in terms of the draft.
And for junior hockey, everybody kind of focuses on the USHL, BCHL now that United States players and players from around the world can come in more easily. They look at the NAL and the NCDC as well. How good of an option is the NCDC? How do you see the league's growth, the quality of players? Where are you at with all that stuff? With that?
Yeah, in terms of the NCDC, the on ice product, it's very good. And I don't think it gets enough credit in the hockey world. I think it takes people to come to the games and actually see it for themselves. I've obviously this is my second year that just finished.
And you're a champ in year 2. And you were there in year 1 as well.
Yeah, year 1 we played PAL Junior Islanders in a best of 3 in the finals, and we won game 1, and we were up 1-0 in game 2 with 3 minutes left, and they tied it up and then won in overtime, and then took game 3 to win it all. But the league's very good. We attract players from all over the world. Our leading scorer this past year was from Japan.
I saw that.
Yeah, so it's but the league's very good, and I would say the biggest thing is, again, going back to my point about I don't think people know what we have to offer. If I go through like our daily routine with the players, our players are getting to the rink every morning around 9:30. Mm-hmm. We do video pretty much every day with the players, right around 9:45, 15, 20 minutes. Early in the year, we'll do a lot of NHL clips, just, going over systems, how we want to play. And then as the year gets going, obviously we'll look at, our previous games from the weekend, good and bad, things we need to work on. Mm-hmm. And even during the year, we'll look at NHL clips and pre-scout our opponents. And we hit the ice around 10:45. We pretty much can skate whenever we want. Get the decor out 2 to 3 times a week before practice, and then around 12:30, we're up in the gym at Edge Performance Systems, which I would argue is one of the top facilities in New England. So when you look at that schedule, 9:30 to 1:30, 1:45, a good 4 hours at the rink every day. That's a lot, with video, with practice, extra work, one-on-one video, and workout, So there's a lot to offer. Mm-hmm. And on top of it, there's no tuition to play for us.
Yeah.
The only real cost involved is billeting for players that are from outside the area. But, we provide, we have a Bauer deal, like we provide sticks, mm-hmm. helmet, gloves, pants. We travel, team meals on the road. So we provide a lot. We're in a really good area. I think that's one of the biggest things we have going as well is we're in the Boston area.
Yep.
We're 35 minutes south of Boston and 20 minutes north of Providence. We're right in the backyard of, obviously a ton of top Division I and Division III programs. Mm-hmm. So I think there's a lot to offer here.
What's not to say the rate, but like how have, in your 2 years, college commitment wise, what have you seen from your players, both at the Division I or going to the Division I and Division III levels? I mean, it seems like coaches are going out more and more to NCDC games.
Yeah, in the last 2 years, we've had a mix, obviously, of both of Division I. Most recently, our goaltender Ryan Kai's committed to Merrimack just before the playoffs started. Mm-hmm. At the end of March. But we've had a mix the last 2 years of Division I and Division III commits. Our Division III commits, you're talking about some of the top schools in the world. The Middleburys, the Bowdens, the Trinities, Colbys,
yep.
Places like that, Babson. We're sending kids to schools like that, and I think it goes back to my point too. Like I don't think a lot of people understand how good Division III hockey is, and
they don't.
How good of a player you have to be to play at one of those schools, and how good of a student you have to be to get to one of those schools.
I get emails a lot from readers and fans and parents, and one of the most prevalent ones I get is, why don't you write about Division III hockey more? And my only answer is, you're right. You're right. And I think, and that's something we want to get into recruiting wise of, because there are so many great players. You mentioned Paul Kanata, his son Will is going to
Williams.
Yep. Thank you for saving me. I brought it up. I didn't even know that in the school. I forgot the school, but he's going to Williams. Yep. And, he's a high caliber player, and there's a lot of high caliber players going the Division III route, especially to those NESCACs. Why do you think it's overlooked? I mean, obviously, it gets overlooked because Division I is Harvard and BU and BC and the Beanpot and all that stuff. But, when you deal with players, I imagine a lot of times you say, hey, Division III is a really good opportunity too, right?
Yeah, and it certainly takes some time to get through. And again, every player is different. Some players are educated on, the Trinities, the Bowdens, Colbys, those places. But, you get some players from maybe the Midwest or, from overseas, and they don't know.
And they're like, what the hell's a Colby?
They don't know what those schools have to offer, both academically and from a hockey standpoint. But, it's just trying to educate the players early on. Like I know here, in South Shore, we meet with every player early on in the season, just to get a list going of schools, that might be of target for them. Both Division I and Division III, and obviously that list gets smaller as the year progresses. For some it gets bigger. But for me, it's just really trying to educate the players on what's out there at all the different levels.
I look at the Division III level, and I look at the NESCACs especially, and it's like, if you can go to a Williams or a Bowden or a Colby or a Babson, get an outstanding education. Those are phenomenal schools.
No brainer.
And play hockey. Yeah. Like, why would you not? That's where I look at it. Like, I look at like a Jake McManus from Belmont Hill this year. I think he's going to Williams as well. Correct. with Will Canada. Jake was a phenomenal player at the prep level. He gets to go right to Williams, start immediately, play hockey there, get an amazing education. But he's set up for, I won't say for life, but that's a great setup to have. And I think it gets overlooked way too much.
Yeah, and the reality is, you have to be a student, right, to go to one of those schools.
100%.
And the reality is, not every person is a high-end student.
I agree.
That can get into one of those schools. But if you have the academic background, if you can afford it, and if you can play at one of those schools, for me, it's an absolute no-brainer.
What's the difference between a Division I and a Division III prospect? Like, what are some of the things that separate them, if there are any?
Yeah, I think obviously, the players we deal with now, and even in the NCDC and the USHL, like everybody can skate, everybody can shoot the puck. Most kids can make plays, but it's what separates you, right? And I think when you start talking about USHL Division I, what those guys are looking for. It's the details. It's the habits. It's the second and third effort. Can you win puck battles? Can you win face-offs? You're willing to block shots. Do you play a hard skill game? I think the details start factoring a bit more when you start talking about Division I and obviously the USHL, which is one of the best junior league out there.
Yeah, and the hockey sense, as you said, is such a big key part of it, because you can be as fast as heck, you can shoot the puck like crazy. If you don't know where to go on the ice, if you don't know how to play away from the puck, I think that the game suffers somewhere. Yep.
Hey, it's Bobby Moran, Director of Athletics at Thayer Academy. You know what? Experience matters, and Thayer Academy's professional coaching staff understands how to work with each student athlete to help them succeed. Our coaches and faculty are committed to ensuring both 5th to 12th graders feel known, connected, and prepared. This is Thayer's secret sauce, nurturing each student to reach their full potential. Here, success is truly a team sport. Are you ready for your child to take the next step? See what Thayer has to offer at thayer.org. That's THAYER.org.
When you look at college hockey recruiting is coming up, obviously, kind of shifting things back to Division I. August 1st is fast approaching. We're recording on July 9th. It's like 355 degrees outside. So hopefully by August 1st, it'll probably be hotter on August 1st, honestly. What are common mistakes you see, whether it be with your own players, whether it be with other players, that can be avoided when it comes to committing on or around August 1st?
Yeah, I think it's important that the player, the family just really does their homework and is patient with finding the right fit, right? Because again, you see it, the last few years, kids, August 1st comes and kids are committing to schools, and maybe kids haven't even visited those schools that they're committing to, right? So
the Instagram graphic is already made.
Yeah, and I don't know if that changes, right? But obviously, you're seeing kids commit so early at such a young age, and when they commit at a young age, they still have a ways to go before they arrive on campus wherever they're going.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things I see it, because this will be my second year of covering college recruitment, and you see kids commit at a young age, which it's hard. I mean, that 16 years old is a hard age because you don't fully know what you want yet, right? Like, you don't exactly know where you want to go, and you often sometimes see kids commit from New England outside the region and then end up coming back. Cole Eiserman's a great example, and of course every situation is different. I'm not, it's not everybody who's doing that. But you also see kids commit to one school in the region and then commit to another later on because it's a better fit. And I think I don't know how that's avoided, though, because as you said, I think there is always that pressure around August 1. Kids always do want to commit, and the high-end kids are going to commit, no matter what. And if things change, they just change. And, talking to some college hockey coaches, they're just kind of like, well, other teams take from our commits, we take from other teams' commits. Yeah. I feel like it's just kind of a cycle where it's like, well, whatever.
It's a crazy world, and it's getting, worse every year with kids flipping schools and, kids committing to a school when they're young at August 1st when it comes time. And then, a year or two later when they start doing really well in junior hockey, maybe in the USHL, maybe they're committing to a better school. But yeah, I don't know. I obviously don't coach in college, so but I do see it from afar, and it is a crazy world.
We are feeding so many kids to college, be it in the NCDC or up in the USHL, and I think there's the other end of it with these kids committing so early. There's also, the social media end of it too, of I mentioned the Instagram graphics, and a lot of the Instagram graphics are great. I would, at that age, I would have killed for an Instagram graphic like that. But I don't think it changes. And I do wonder, because you see in football and basketball, when kids get offers, kids tweet it out, oh, I'm so honored to announce I got a commit, or I got a verbal offer or whatever from Providence or something like that. Yep. I wonder when that hits hockey, if that ever does hit hockey, because just with the nature of things evolving, I wonder if we ever get to that point.
I think we're there. But you see it all over social media, right? When a player commits, they're posting it, and it's a crazy world.
Yeah, and you know what? It's as much as we say, hey, take your time, and I think it is important kids take their time, 100%. A lot of work, as goes into a college commitment. There is years of games and practices and skill sessions and early morning practice and all that stuff. And I think it's sort of a way to, at that moment, kind of sort of celebrate where that player's at, Division I wise. So I think it's important that obviously, there'll be lots of kids committing August 1st, 2nd, 3rd, through the month of August. Sure. I did like how James Hagens did last year, where he was I think it came in September.
Yeah,
he waited a while
after. Yeah,
and he really took his time. So I thought that was a good thing for him. Goaltending. I want to talk about goaltending with you because this is your forte. This is where you were a goalie. I was talking to Brian DeCord a few weeks ago, and he mentioned how junior hockey goalies in junior hockey, it's about survival. It's not so much about numbers, not about posting the best save percentage or the best goals against average. It's sort of survival because goalies can come in and out so much. Do you have that same perspective, or do you have a different perspective?
I do have that same perspective, and he's absolutely right. And it's so hard, for goalies to find a good opportunity in junior hockey. Obviously, you have a lot of leagues out there. There's a lot of teams, and it's just my advice is it's so important to just make sure you find the right fit, the right opportunity. And maybe it's not a league that you want to go to start, but it's so important that you're getting games, you're playing a lot of minutes versus just maybe being in the USHL or another junior league and just being on the bench, right? Yeah. So, yes, it is about just surviving, but more importantly, it's making sure you're playing and you're in a good environment.
Because you see kids leaving prep early just to go to the USHL, and you see their games played after 1 year or even 2 years, and they're small amounts of games. They're less than they would have played in prep. Yeah. And I wonder, like, is that worth it? I know you're getting the practice time against those older players. You're getting, you're going through adversity 100% in those leagues, not playing a lot, inconsistent playing time, having to go in after not playing for 5 games, those types of things. But is that something that a 16 or 17-year-old should be going through when they could be playing a lot at a prep school near home?
Yeah, and I think for goalies are different, right?
Yep.
It's definitely different from...
that better than I do.
Yeah, goalie definitely different from skaters in the sense of, goalies, you can argue develop late. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Everybody talks about that, and goalies take a little bit longer than players. So, yeah, I think staying maybe that one extra year versus jumping too early is important,
Yeah, and you mentioned it just a couple minutes ago, where kids kind of just want to, I want to go to the USHL, or I want to go to the highest junior league. But with goalies, that's not necessarily the most important thing, right? The most important thing is games played.
Yeah.
Or is it not?
I think again, games played, it's huge, right? When I'm looking at goalies now for my own team, like I'm looking for a guy that has come from maybe another junior league or come from a top prep school that's played a lot of games, right? Because I know that he's game ready and he's played in big moments and understands big moments. A 3-2 game, a 2-1 game with 7 minutes left, how to react. You're up a goal, you're down a goal, you need to come up with a big save. Like, all those things matter, right? Versus maybe somebody that hasn't been in those experiences.
And you can only really get that in games, right? Like, you can practice against the best players all you want, but those game situations, reading those shots, that's all
100%,
games.
100%. You can't, you can, I hear it all the time, always practice with, these pro guys in the summer and this and that. Like, you can't, you got to play in the games to understand the moment and to have those experiences. You can't take that away.
No, and I see it even as someone, I don't have an eye for goalies like obviously you do or many others in the region do, but like, I see it and I see some of the games played numbers and it's like, and so when I was talking to Brian DeCord and like Alfie Me showed and they were saying, go to the NAL, go to any junior league where you can play minutes and play games, and that's such an important key element to development.
Yeah, I mean, I'll use our goalie this year, Ryan Kais, for example. We played 52 regular season games, and we ended up playing 12 in the playoffs. He obviously played all 12, but in the regular season, I think he played 42 out of the 52 regular season games. It's a lot of games. But that experience alone, is hopefully going to help him in college.
Yeah, so he's going to Merrimack.
Yeah.
And in terms of committing goalies, when it comes to college commitments, obviously there's one net. You're going to have 2 goalies at a school who don't play much. Yeah. Actually, when I was at UMass, they did do the tandem with Philip Lindbergh and Matt Murray. So some teams do it, but a lot don't. How do you go about advising or helping goalies pick a college and get into the college recruitment process when you have it at South Shore?
Yeah, it's so hard, right? Because you're obviously the most important thing that I try to tell goalies, and I'm sure every coach is the same, is go somewhere where you're going to play, right? And it's a long year if you're not playing and just sitting on the bench or in the stands, right? So again, this goes back to my point about the different opportunities, the different options in Division III. Like, there's some really good places out there that you can go play, and if I had the opportunity to go to Trinity and play over a Division I school and be a backup, like, that's a legit conversation, something you need to consider. You know what I mean? You're talking and using Trinity as an example. They were in the national championship game this year. They're one of the best Division III programs out there, and if you can go to a place like that, play for 4 years, get a good experience, get a good education, to me, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I think that's the same with skaters too. Like, if you're gonna go to a Division I school and not play or not dress and not be in the lineup, or you can go to a Division III school and be a major player for them. Yep. I get the idea of going to Division I. Like, I'm not stupid. I get that. Yep. But especially with goalies too, like, go where you're going to play. I completely agree with that. I think, it's been fascinating getting to talk to you about these things because you are in those, obviously South Shore is your main thing, but obviously the USHL and NHL Central Scouting. So it is interesting. You have all these perspectives, and you're very young. You're very young. But you have a really good thing going. Like this is good. I've been fortunate. Obviously, most importantly, the people that I've been able to work with. You talked about Coach Kanata at Milton, who obviously I still talk to weekly. He's down in Foxboro now, running a summer program that I'm helping him with. And, Scott Harlow, who, when I first joined the Kings was the GM and coach of the junior team, and Drew Macholi, who, joined the Kings a couple of years back, who I worked with. Then he went over to Mount, and actually he's coming back. I saw that.
Yeah, he's coming back to the Kings in a different role. Obviously, he'll help me coach the NCDC team, but he'll kind of oversee some of our other teams. But, it's guys like him, Brian DeCord, you mentioned. I've worked for Brian over the years in the summers with the goalie programs down in Foxboro. Dave Franzosa, BC alum, local guy who's actually our president in South Shore. Just so many good hockey minds, so many good people out there that I've been fortunate to be around. And
you do have a fourth thing. I forgot to mention this. Speaking of Foxboro, the Foxboro Prep League, the famous Foxboro Prep League. It is a hell of a night, hell of a Wednesday night every week during the summer. It's like I know we write about it. It's a big league. Obviously it's a good. It's a very serious. Well, it's serious. I don't want to make it sound like it's the Stanley Cup, but it's really it's a very serious summer league. How do you see certain players when they come in? Because there are a lot of guys who come in, have a really big summer, and then go on to have a big season. It is a really important league to be in during the summer.
Yeah, and you think of it, right? Like it's the summer, and it's shinny hockey, but it's
That's why I didn't want to say it's like it's not like it's kids are blocking shots out there, but sometimes they are.
Yeah, but if you go to a game on obviously, so the league is we started 3 weeks ago. The league runs every Wednesday night for 10 weeks. We have 3 games a night, 5:30, 7, and 8:30, 6 teams. The games are good, right?
Good.
It's not just a summer shinny game.
Nope, it's good.
It's a good pace. Guys are competing. We're getting college guys, junior scouts that are coming out to the games. So we've been doing it for a few years. I wish we could grow the league. There's many reasons why we don't. The biggest one is ice. You just don't have the ice to add 2-4 more teams. There's a lot of players looking every year to get into the league.
I was going to say, you guys you could field 2 or 4 more teams.
Yeah, we put the league out usually right after the new year. We put the league out. Players can apply to get into the league. And then how it works is we have a draft usually right around May 1st. Myself and the other 5 coaches, Drew Macholi, Jeff Cox, who else do we have?
Ian Moran.
Peter Donatelli, Ian Moran, Sean Walsh from Bowdoin. We do a draft. I think this year we had 260 kids apply to play in the league, and obviously with 6 teams, we accepted 120. So we had to turn away quite a few, which is unfortunate. But at the same time, when you start adding, it's like anything else, right? You start adding teams. Maybe the product will dip a little bit, and that's not really what we're looking to do. We want to make it, the Premier League, in the area every summer, in a place where the best players can play with and against the best players, once a week. Yeah,
that's fair to keep it that way.
Yeah.
And the best part about Foxboro is they have the new restaurant downstairs.
Yeah, they just opened up Augustus. Just opened up. I think June 1st, so they've been open for a few weeks, and the food's actually really good. So
it is.
Yeah.
Mark Diver and I had dinner there the first night of the Foxboro Prep League.
Yep.
And we were surprised. We were surprised because there are a lot of rinks you go to and the food is not good, but Foxboro's consistently put out a good product, I think.
Yeah, this is. I would say this, and again, they've only been open for a few weeks, but I would say this is one of the better. The better ones that I've seen in all the years I've been down there.
I agree. Tyler, it's been great, but before you go, we do have our fun segment called Overtime, and I'll hand things over to David Yaz.
Thank you, Evan, and welcome back to Overtime, where I provide 3 questions for which this panel is unprepared. You guys didn't cheat, did you?
No,
Okay.
I don't even know what the questions are.
All right. 3 questions. And Tyler, you can go first. What I've done here is assemble 3 quotes from major hockey figures. And so I'm going to tell you the quote, and you just tell me whether they're right or not, right, wrong, or somewhere in between. First quote comes from hockey legend Gordie Howe. Gordie said the following: "All hockey players are bilingual. They know English and profanity." So the question is there even a seed of truth in there, Tyler, or is it just funny?
I think it's both true and pretty funny. So,
did you have a chirping game in your playing days?
Honestly, I can't say I did. Obviously,
Okay.
I was a goalie, so obviously was just down in the crease by myself.
Yeah.
Goalies don't
like
have
all
to-
the goalies,
yeah,
so
goalies.
I can't say I was a big chirper.
Okay.
Chirping as a goalie is dangerous because I feel like you could chirp someone and then if they score on you immediately, it's like, all right, well.
Yeah, I think it's a little different off the ice in the locker room with your buddies, but during the game, I think it's a little hard for the goalie to start chirping
Get involved.
guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Quote number 2. Evan, you can take this one first. "Hockey players wear numbers because you can't always identify the body with dental records." That was Bob Plager who said that. He's a NHL veteran. And so obviously it speaks to the toughness of the sport. Evan, any reaction to that quote?
It's true. I mean, you see the NHL, these guys take sticks to the face all the time, pucks, junior, in USHL and stuff. They don't wear cages, so it's the same thing. And you always see the fake teeth, and you got to have the number for it.
Now, if
You
I
gotta have
had
the
to
number.
guess, Evan, I'd say in your playing day, well, I know you still play hockey, you still get on the ice.
I still wear a cage.
I would guess that you're more of a finesse player than a or am I wrong about that?
Back at when I was in youth hockey, yes, but in high school we played a very a gritty game. So I was very physical. I was very in the corners, which I do not give that vibe off. But that was how we won games. We were not a very skilled team, so that was how it was. Now in men's league, I'm not touching anybody. Like try to dangle and stuff. It's always a dumb idea, but yeah.
Is there checking in men's league?
No.
Checking, there's not. Okay.
But there will be the
But it still
occasional
happens.
drunk 45-year-old who runs through. It's
Right.
like, all right, come on. It's like Wednesday at 9 p.m. Let's go. But yeah.
That's why I don't play men's.
Yes, I don't blame you. I don't blame you.
Tyler, any reaction to Plager's quote about toughness and violence or whatever else he's talking about there in hockey?
No, I think it's all spot on.
Do you have to be, this is going to sound silly, do you have to be tough to play hockey? And I don't mean, I know a lot of players in the NHL, they just don't fight, right? It's just not their thing. But does for hockey more than any other sport, is toughness important?
Oh yeah, it's 100%.
Yeah.
You have to be tough. You have to be willing to compete every time you step on the ice, especially as you move up the ladder and move into higher leagues, college hockey, pro hockey. You have to be tough. You have to be willing to compete. Have to be willing to win puck battles. Have to be willing to block shots. Kind of all of the above.
Do you think hockey players are tougher than, say, tennis players?
Hey, I've been picking up tennis recently. It's a fun sport. I will say, though, to what Tyler said about hockey, because people think, oh, toughness, you got to beat everybody up. And it's like, that's not it. It's not. It's, are you willing to go in the corner with a bigger guy and get squished like a bug against the glass and try to come out with the puck? That's the toughness, I think, of hockey.
That's a good point. And plus, times have changed, right? I mean, it's back in the days of no helmets, NHL, and there's a reason why a lot of those guys ended up in wheelchairs, right?
Yeah. Actually, it's funny. I just read Ken Dryden's book, The Game. I don't know if you've ever read it. No. It's a phenomenal book. And I should have read it earlier. And it was just, he had really fascinating takes on violence in hockey. And this was written in the 80s.
Yep.
And it's funny to see how, he thought the golden age of hockey was the 50s. It's when you're a child. And
right.
He was talking about the corporatization of hockey and the money. And this was in the 80s. And just the violence end of it. Because back then fighting was huge. And, guys would, 10 years later, you'd have Scott Stevens just hitting guys 10 seconds after the puck goes away. And it's just, it was a really interesting view of that time, of how he was very progressive in those sense.
Final quote comes to us from NHL player and coach Glenn Sather. And Glenn said the following: Hockey is a game of mistakes. The team that makes the fewest will win. Pretty simple, but I'd be interested to hear whether you think that's true. Tyler, we'll start with you.
I definitely think it's true. And, you look at, the Florida Panthers, their run the last 2 years, right, being in the Cup final the last 2 years, and fortunately getting it done this year. You look at their run and the way they play the game, defensive style, a heavy game, protecting middle ice, playing as a 5-man unit in all 3 zones. And just when you look back on it, they didn't make many mistakes.
No,
right?
they
Obviously,
didn't.
To win, you need puck luck along the way. But, they really bunkered down and played a defensive game and made very minimal mistakes along the way.
And they sort of forced other teams to make mistakes, which I think is an interesting thing. And you see that a lot. I mean, at any level of hockey is, that's the whole idea of dumping it in, really. It's like, it's a big part of it of, hey, let's let them break it out. Let's let them make a mistake. You see that a lot like in the MIAA with Massachusetts high school hockey. And, it's an interesting thing. I would agree with that. I think mistake-free. And that goes hand in hand with, like, kids who play mistake-free games. You typically have a high hockey sense, and that usually leads to moving on to the next level.
For sure.
So mistake-free it's good, yes. Although in real life, we seem to all make a lot of mistakes.
Well, it just seems, and I agree with you, the Stanley Cup final, particularly Game 7, wait a minute, who won? The Panthers?
The Panthers won that, yes, over the Oilers.
I'm a big fan. The Panthers, it's not like... you were blown away by their scheming and anything. It almost felt like a pitcher throwing a shutout. It's like they're just in the zone, and as long as they don't trip up, they're not going to blow it. And the game was exciting, but it was also I would have preferred a couple more goals there. But it was impressive how they locked down.
It was a great game. I agreed with you though. I was like, I'd love like a 5-4.
Yeah.
Like McDavid has 2 goals and Draisaitl has 1, but 2-1. It was good. And now it's just there's no hockey. This is Foxboro Prep League.
Yeah, we got
that's my hockey every week.
Yeah, we were off last week for 4th of July and back at it. I think tomorrow will be week 4. So.
Yeah, I'll be there. So that'll be fun. Well, Tyler, this has been great, and thank you for hosting Overtime.
My pleasure. Great job, both of you, on Overtime. We have a carton of chiclets for both of you to take home. The gum.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So I guess we're both winners of that Overtime segment. But yes, Tyler, thanks for coming on. I'm sure we'll talk again soon.
Thanks for having me.
Of course.
Appreciate it.
And for New England Hockey Journal, I'm Evan Marinofsky. You RinkWise listeners, have a great rest of your week. I'll see you all at the rinks.